The Rising Asia Literary Circle, under the aegis of the Rising Asia Foundation and Rising Asia Journal, presents Indian-born, Indo-Chinese Canadian fiction writer Kwai Yun Li, who's visiting her birthplace, Calcutta, Kolkata, India. Dr. Julie Banerjee Mehta, the conceptualizer and director of the Literary Circle, in conversation with Kwai Yun Li.
Top of the evening, everyone. It is so nice, so heartening to see so many familiar faces, new friends for the book circle for Rising Asia. Thank you for being here. My job is a long one for the evening, but I think some of the burden will be taken off me by two wonderful gentlemen. The first is the president of the Rising Asia Literary Circle, but actually the Rising Asia Foundation and the journal, and that is Mr. Aniruddha Lahiri, titan of a man in corporate, and let's see what he has to tell us. Onida.
Hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to add my own word of welcome to all of you. I'm really enthused to see so many of you who come here to listen to the author today. Right? And after all, Kwai Yun Li is no ordinary person. But what you'll be more excited about is the fact I was, and that is the fact that she is our own homegrown brand. This brand was born here at the back of their business premises, right? Her father's and the parents' shop. And she was therefore a citizen of Calcutta, and she is our very own. Right. She migrated to Canada after that. But you can forget Calcutta, whoever stayed here, but Calcutta can never forget you. And therefore, once you have a connection with Calcutta, and particularly a strong one like being born here, place of birth, then for all times to come, you are a Bengali. And we are so proud of these Bengalis, and at this point in time, we are really proud of you. Right.
Thank you.
Right. Now, you've heard about her, and there is something given over here. And I would only like to say a few things which makes her life even more interesting. She trained to be an accountant. She went to Canada, immigrated to Canada. She completed her studies. But imagine doing a job like that, accounting. She got bored of bean counting, and therefore said, I am not a bean counter, and I want to do something creative. So she went into writing books. So that's her, Kwai Yun Li. Right. I don't want to take much of your time today because you've come to listen to her and not us, least of all me. And therefore, suffice it to say that we had looked forward to your coming here. Very happy that you are here today with us. And everybody will get to see and hear our homegrown band. Right. Thank you. And somebody was telling me, and you were telling me about Treaty Bazaar. And I said that, look, that's where, when we were in college, before I went to the IIT, we were here. And I said we used to go there every Sunday for breakfast. And they used to bring their SUVs, open the back of the car, bring out the little sitting, little stools or whatever it is, and then serve and a little table, and then serve breakfast, piping hot breakfast, Chinese breakfast, and within 2 hours is gone. It was all wrapped up and the car had disappeared. That was how Treaty Bazaar was, and how it is best known to people not only here but actually all over the world. Right. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure for me, Judy, to talk about her and introduce her to everybody else. And we look forward to a great evening. So listen to her and enjoy. Thank you very much.
So, Dr. Harish Mehta, the conceptualizer, the creator of the Rising Asia Foundation. He is a professor in another life, but he's also an academic editor and historian and a human rights writer. His field is American foreign policy in Vietnam, but he's come a long way. And really, I'm surprised that he's in love with this city enough to want to stay on.
Because he's in love with you.
Touché.
I think she forgot to say that he's a humorist as well. As many of you would remember me for the fun things I tend to say. So a very warm welcome to you all, and I especially am happy that Kwai is here with her engineer husband from England originally, yes. Robert, who did his engineering studies in Cambridge and then lived all these years in Canada, made a life for himself, and there he found at one of his Christmas parties a young Chinese girl called Kwai. And then he decided to put all kinds of all his engineering skills into play to be able to leverage or to use an engineering term, remove all spanners from the works that might have existed in order to kickstart a new relationship. Like the old Triumph motorcycles. So with that humor, I recognize some very... So with that, I recognize all of you and I welcome you warmly. Among you are titans and captains and mistresses and misses of business and the world of journalism, Mr. Lahiri, Professor Mehta, Mr. Vishnu, Sureka, who's very kindly given us this wonderful space to use and misuse, and the wonderful editor from Telegraph T2 who's here, and many of the local Chinese friends like William from Shanghai, who runs this very historic dry cleaning shop, as well as other Chinese, the nephew of Kwai and his family who live here, and I might miss some people, but yes, yes, and the owner of the famous Beijing restaurant where we always go to have a few drinks and a few eats. She's here with her friends, and the Chinese consulate. Because the consul general is not here, he's sending one of his senior staff members who is on his way. So with those words, I thank you for coming in numbers, and I am very happy that you are all a part of the Rising Asia family. May the family continue to grow, and thank you.
Since we are on the game of speeches, I think it would be very appropriate to say to you that, last time we were talking about, most of you were here, we were talking about how if your initiatives and your thoughts are more or less on the pure side, the universe comes together to make it possible. I particularly am thankful to the editor of T2, I have worked as a journalist in 3 countries out of India with a lot of very interesting people, out of the box, in the box, and superb writers. But I have yet to see somebody who, wearing such acumen of all kinds on such young shoulders, sees how important it is to have the intersection where she can support literary interests, books, art, culture, fashion, with writers, and I can tell you that's a hard one to find, and then gives of her time and of herself to promote culture and the arts and literature in the city. So with that, Smita Roy Chowdhury, I think you deserve an applause.
I call her the power lady of Calcutta.
And do say a few words.
Julie is always very, very generous with her praises, as we all know. It has been a pleasure, associating and collaborating with Julie on several things. She adds a lot of value to T2 in her very insightful interviews of authors, and her reviews are something we all look forward to. I really thank her for that. And outside of T2, the way she is doing these literary events in her small way, and now it's getting bigger and bigger. So it is very, very heartening to see, because after a very long time we see somebody doing something like this about the literary world in such a consistent manner. I mean, it's not a one-off thing. She's been doing this very consistently, and when it's, of course, an initiative like this, and then obviously there's no question of not supporting. So, and about today's evening, I'm really looking forward to it. Kwai Yun Li's session. I'm sure it's going to be a very engaging session, and I'm looking forward to read your book as well after this. So, without delay, I think we should get on with the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Smita. Something very small for you to felicitate you from Rising Asia. Thank you. Thank you. And something for you, Kwai, in advance, so that you don't give me a hard time. Okay.
Thank you.
So, to cut a long story short, Kwai's story is interesting on many, many, many fronts. Being Chinese... I'm sorry. We should make better arrangements next time.
Just closer to your mouth.
You hold the mic closer.
Yeah. So, it's difficult to be a diasporic Chinese, a diasporic anyone, because you are, at the end of the day, out of home and out of belonging and out of place. So here with Kwai, the idea of home and identity and how you make a new home becomes doubly important. Why? Because it was a trip from mainland China to Kolkata, and then from Kolkata to Canada. So it's been a double whammy of sorts. In this whole journey of hers, what strikes me is that she has never given up her sense of humor. All the challenges that she has faced, and I remember the first time we met Kwai, was she came to my class at the University of Toronto when this wonderful book in its Toronto avatar by T-Zar, the Palm Leaf Fan and Other Stories, she wowed the class like no other author by saying that, so, would you like me to sing a Bollywood number? 2008, 14 years ago, and she really did a number. So the class was, the end of the year when we asked for responses to different authors, from Shyam Selvadurai to Joy Kogawa to Judy Fong Bates, she won the award hands down. So that's number one about Kwai. The second thing I think I want to share with you about Kwai she is not the Chinese that Canada put in a very impossible situation to get their family to Canada. There was a Chinese head tax that many Chinese faced, but not the Chinese who came from India, mainly the Chinese who came from mainland China. So in case you think you put them all in one pigeonhole, no. They are an esoteric brand of Chinese, the Hakka people. Lee Kuan Yew, our Prime Minister of Singapore, was a Hakka, and so is Kwai. And you know what Hakka means? The origin of the Hakka people is that they are guest people. So the guest people learn to adjust and adapt more than any other. Third thing about Kwai, before I start my conversation with her, is the fact that she was persistent like most Hakka people. She struggled. She was, if I may share, it's not, it's an open secret for those of us. There's Nishi Pulgurta here. There's Joyoni Banerjee here, her friend, people who've done their PhDs, written extensively in their postdoc about Kwai's work. She was taken with promises of plenty and abundance as an arranged marriage bride. But as it happens in Sikh communities, as it happens in many Indian communities, those were untruths. She didn't complain. She didn't beat her breast. She decided she was going to take life in her own hands and do the best she could. And look where she is today. She's just finished your master's in anthropology from McMaster, right? Yes. So, and that is her experience again of the 1962 incarceration of Chinese people and the way we treated them. So it was no different from the way that Canada treated their Chinese from how we treated our Chinese. It is one of the blotches of history. So with that, Kwai, I would like to start by asking you a very simple question. When did you think, at what stage did you think that you wanted to write these stories? Was it a absolute push from the inside which says, no, I've got to do it? And you woke up one fine day, as many authors say? Or was it something that was brewing inside of you and you said, no, I'm going to begin to write?
Thank you, Julie. Well, no, actually, it was in the University of Toronto. I decided I would take an English course. So there I was sitting in there. I think there was an assignment. I'm not so sure what assignment it was. I have to write something. So I wrote about, it was monsoon. We were flooded. I caught a fish in my bedroom and we cook it and we ate it with soy sauce and rice. And professor looked at it and then called me up and said, well, it's very interesting, but I think she asked me to write a diary. She says, it's not quite diary material. And of course I said, oh yeah. And I so decided that I'd write that story. And when I wrote that, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation picked it up. And, in the morning show, I said, well, okay, if you like it, I got a lot more. So that's how it started.
Great. So when you were working, Kwai, as a chartered accountant, and you were pretty good at your job, would you say that you said at one point that you were not going to be looking at your day job so much, and that maybe one day you could give up your day job and write? Because that's one of the things that confronts all writers. Many of us are writers here, confronts us, and you wonder, is it going to be well worth it? What kind of response did you get after you published Palm Leaf Fan and Other Stories? It was not easy, I know, but would you like to tell us a little bit about that experience?
It's not easy to be a writer anywhere. Canada, with the small population, just don't have the market for it. Yeah, I was very lucky. I had a very good professor when I was doing my undergrad, and he encouraged me to write. At some point, the accounting job, the final blow was we were doing reports. The office building, normally they're closed down, everything closed down, and they checked out the parking lot. Any car that left after midnight get tagged and towed away. And so the company gave out passes so that our car can stay in the parking lot beyond midnight. I thought, it has to be more life than getting a parking pass in some office building. So I decided that, I'll just quit and then do a job, like part-time. I think that's how I started to be serious about writing.
A lot of critics, and I see Nishi here, who's done a lot of work on you. I see Joyni Banerjee, who's, she's probably the scholar on your work. Your writing has a quality that I find is very simple. It is not cluttered, and you manage to convey the hardships in a very light-hearted manner. It's not beating your breast and saying, oh, me, my, look at me, we were Chinese in Tiriti Bazaar, we were confronted with racism, we were this, we were that. You know how racist Indians can be. We know how we are. But my question to you is that how did you remember this? Years in Kolkata, growing up, not all experiences were happy experiences. How did you take that to Canada, and how did those stories re-emerge when you wanted to write about them?
I think I have my mother to thank. She is very, actually the song represented is don't worry, be happy. She just, it's sort of, somehow I didn't realize I picked up so much of my mother's way, her way of thinking, her way of life. All I remember is being a very rebellious teenager. Mother is wrong. I am right. So I think that's basically what it is. Either you get very upset, either she get very upset with life, we sell bean sprout in the market, and sometimes it doesn't get sold, and then we don't have money for meals. Yeah. But it's okay, we got noodles. Yeah. It fill our tummy. So you don't worry. So I think something will come up tomorrow. Don't worry. Maybe not be happy, but don't worry.
Really, that's the kind of integrity I think that was pummeled into you guys, because there is a story of yours which I think I referred to in class when kids complain about this, complain about that, and the story goes that I think it's a story called Jade, and in that story there is one line which says, we have, and this is a woman saying it, most of your stories have these wonderful super women which are all over, but we don't see them. We managed then and we will manage now. So this word manage, I can't tell you how many class discussions we've had with youngsters who've read the book, and they feel that the English language, the way you have used it, is so minimalistic. It has a stamp of maybe Japan, maybe China, maybe the East Asian countries, when we talk to linguistic professors. I know this is a tough one, Kwai, but when you translate into your thoughts, would I be right to say that you don't think in English, that you think in either your language? Because you speak you speak Mandarin too, don't you? And you speak Cantonese and Hakka. So how does it work? I mean, how does language work with you when you write?
I think it's selective. Yeah, this is very kind of interesting. It comes in more of a feeling. There's this one story. My friend, I don't remember her name. I don't remember what she looks like, and we were both 5 years old. I just got this feeling that every time I think of her, there's a loss, and I say, why do I feel that there's a feeling of loss? So it's just a feeling I have. It's sort of come back. The feeling I kind of translate into, say, English. I have trouble with my languages. You ask my. Where's my nephew? Next thing you know, I'll start mixing up all the dialect, and this is a what? Yeah, fun. I think now they got used to me. Yeah, it's just all the mixture.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works for a lot of writers. I mean, if you talk to Joy Kogawa, who's your compatriot, your senior colleague, the Japanese-Canadian writer who is of such acclaim, she says the same thing. And then the next question I'd lead to is, when you remember a story, for instance, the monsoons. I still remember one of your stories where you talk about you and a schoolgirl of yours, a friend of yours. You're sitting on the rickshaw, and we know Benting Street and Tiriti Bazaar and the areas of North Calcutta, so beautiful but also very crowded. So, and waterlogging is a big problem. So the two buses which are standing by each other, one not letting the other pass, and the urchin who was splashing water all over the place, and you two sitting in the rickshaw with just nowhere to go. When you remember those stories, Kwai, how do you remember them? Do you smell the smell of rain? Do you see in your mind's eye the monument? Do you feel that dread every night when your mother used to pack a suitcase and put it under your pillow so that maybe if the police came and you all had to be rushed, you would have something? That terrible fear. Can you tell us a little about how it felt to be Chinese in India? You were virtually Indian citizens, but you were treated as the enemy because India had a problem in 1962 with China on the borders. So how did you feel about that at that time when you were so young?
It's mainly transmitted. Yeah, I think I remember the first time it happened, I was in a Chinese language school called Jianguo Xiaoxue, and we were supposed to have extracurricular activities. And then the principal ran into a room we were having in a history class. The principal, Mr. Ma, ran in, whispered something, and then he ran out and said, okay. And Mr. Ma is big. He never runs. That was the first time we all kind of all cranky looking. We all crank a neck looking at him, say, miracles, disaster. We were actually quite excited. Something is happening. That is when our teacher let us go home, and we were told to go in groups. Go in groups. Don't go by yourself. And that was the beginning.
So, Kwai, you did have this feeling that something might happen anytime. Many of the people went to Deoli, right? To the Deoli camps. So when you came back to this idea of being taken away to camps and put away and made to be an example, how did you remember that, and what feelings were aroused in you when you were in Canada?
I think that's would be very common in a Chinese community at that time. Is that we were told that you never speak of this incident. Maybe it's a Hakka characteristic because I don't know, in the 1946.
Switch off your mind.
Yeah.
It will feed into it.
Yeah. Okay. It was 1946 massacre, the Calcutta killings. The Chinese community, they don't want to talk about it. I have to basically take a giant-sized prior in each relatives and start prying and digging. So this is maybe we just say you don't talk about it. No, we don't talk about this subject, and somehow it got repressed. And I don't remember it until I was in a gathering and we were laughing about India, talking about India, and then suddenly this guy looked up and said, "Is that the police?" So, what do you mean? And then sort of everything just came back all at once. Is that we were afraid of the police. Aftermath of the 1962, what they call incident, is that we have to report to the police station once a week. We were all classed as enemy aliens. So it was pretty dramatic, and we are not supposed to leave the boundary of Calcutta. So I never visited, my life in India was mainly in Calcutta because we were not supposed to leave. We have to get permission to leave. And then we hear stories about my friend Fong, her father, Chinese New Year. Chinese love to go pilgrimage. So he got permission to go to Buddha Gaya. And then he decided he wanted to go to Varanasi because you are going on pilgrimage. Why not? So he went there. Unfortunately, he was picked up by the police and he was put in jail. And of course, these stories feed into the Chinese psyche in Calcutta. So it just got blown out. It was actually, you see how myths are formed. Being a social anthropologist, we have to see how it is done, why, and it is how myths are formed. And that story about being arrested in Varanasi became a story that don't leave Calcutta. And of course, my sister, who was born before the independence, India's independence, at that time he was refused Indian citizenship, so he got a Chinese passport. He went to visit his children. There were 5 of them, all in Stockholm, and she had a something called NORI, no objection to return to India. He went to Stockholm. It's a wonderful city. He had a wonderful time with the kids. So he stayed. And so she stayed. Yeah, so anyway, my sister, she was having such a lovely time. She stayed in Stockholm. Stayed and stayed and stayed. And unfortunately, her nori, sorry, I don't mean anything. Whatever it is. Yeah, she stayed, her nori expired, and unfortunately, she couldn't get it renewed. And she doesn't speak Mandarin, she doesn't speak Cantonese. So she had to go to China. She never been to China in her life. So anyway, so she ended up in China, in Guangzhou. So, these stories get built up into a general picture, into a general fear. Be careful of police. Be careful. Follow the rules. Even if you follow the rules, you may not get out ahead. So, all this, it's just a general fear.
So, Kwai, I'd like to open it up to the floor, but before I do, I have one question. Where do you feel you belong? This is a question if you ask Judy Fong Bates, your senior colleague in Canada. Judy will tell you, when I'm in Canada, then I feel I miss China. She's never lived in China. And when I'm in China, I feel, I want to go back in a heartbeat to Toronto. So this whole idea of identity, which is, we were talking about this, I think, when we met a few days ago, and how identity is constantly changing. And you can't really think, hello, I'm in a very happy place, I'm in a party, and then one memory of the past, and you feel you're crying tears. I remember my first Diwali in Toronto. After being with friends in Bangkok, we have about 15, 16 parties, Diwali parties. And here I was thinking, my God, where have I come to? So how do you see yourself as belonging? Where do you think, where is home?
Initially, I really have identity crisis. Big time. In University of Toronto, the Indian student, they always ask, where are you from? Calcutta? No, you're not. So, and then the Chinese will ask me, Calcutta? You are not? So it was, finally I realized that all this, based on the assumption that identity is exclusive. You either belong to Indian, or you are Chinese, or you are Canadian. I'm thinking of what's Canadian, but anyway. So once you get past that hurdle, that is not exclusive. You can be all three, or all four, or five, and then when you are in a place like now in Calcutta, first thing, arrive at the airport, and that was another story. We arrived at the airport, and it was amazing. But then when I go back to Canada, Mississauga, I love you. It's that you are just at home. It's just that. Get through the hurdle. You are not. There is no exclusion. You can be both. Same with, I find that's aside with religion, I can be Buddhist, I can be Hindu. I'm quite happy with Hindu. I can chant Hindu, the chant. But it is actually, it's quite liberating when you pass through that hurdle. So I have no idea where my real home is.
You've said it already. You said it. Your real home is where you are, Kwai. Yeah. I still remember the Buddhist restaurant Kwai took me to. And I'm an avid non-vegetarian, as most of you know. And I didn't say a word. I said, okay. But it was such a wonderful experience. I never ever had tofu in maybe 100 ways. And yet Kwai loves her meat too. So yeah, you can be, I think, the best of many worlds. Is there anything else you'd like to share before I open it up? Is that okay? Okay. So it's a free for all. If you'd raise your hand and keep it short, lovely. Thank you, Anna. Anna Palit.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Anna Palit, and thanks so much for this wonderful session. It's of particular interest to me because I've worked on Chinese and Japanese writers based in Canada. Now, Kwai, what I was interested actually in knowing is, have you had a Chinatown experience in Canada? You grew up in Chinatown in Calcutta, so have you had a Chinatown experience in Canada? And what is the essential difference? Because we've just learned that you've had multiple migrations from China to India, within India, and then Canada. There may have been, well, multiple experiences, multiple levels of discrimination, multiple levels of being embraced. What is the essential difference between the Chinese experience in Calcutta and that in Canada, in your perspective? I've read in other works of other writers, but I'd like to know yours. Thank you so much.
Actually, the immediate response is when in Canada we have the Chinese New Year. I say, this is not Chinese New Year. It's a lot what we experience of Chinatown is that it's colored by our childhood. What we have, what our mother used to tell us, what we got from our mother, was something that, you know, probably insignificant now when we grown up. But, I still remember in Chinatown, my mother wants to, we get a new clothes once a year in Chinese New Year. So I still remember her. She we went there and she wants the cheapest cloth because it's made for you. She wants the cheapest cloth, and of course I have none of that. Things like this. It is in Canada, for example. It's all colored by what is other country. We added a bit of Vietnamese. We added it's more a mixture of, say, East Asian. Chinatown. You go there now. If you come to Toronto, I can take you to some really they call it Desi Hakka restaurant, and you'll love it. And it doesn't exist at that time, say in Chinatown, in Terji Bazaar or Tangra. So just that one example. I think that is, again, my mother comes to mind. She was the Buddhism. In Buddhism, there says nothing change but change itself. So basically, that's the motto. That's what I regard it. It's just change. You will never see the same thing again, and it never live up to what you remember. I think that's a benefit. That's a beauty of childhood and nostalgia.
Wonderfully said. It's almost as if you're taking the words out of Salman Rushdie's mouth, Imaginary Homelands, right? That we cannot really construct that village or that city unless we can construct it in our minds. Wonderful. Yes, of course. There are two others waiting. Thank you.
Well, I just have a very short question about memory. Now, you were born in Calcutta, but still, do you have any memory from a past life of Guangzhou? Or perhaps a memory constructed from readings or listening to your grandmother, your mother? give us a little painting of the constructed memory of China that you picked up from stories.
That's a dangerous question to ask a writer. And of course, we have stories. Very dangerous. But realistically, no. My accounting experience, also, my accounting training also gave me this thing about things has to be proven. Your balance sheet has to balance. Your income statement has to be proven that you have make profit. So sadly, no. I wish I have. But my idea of China was all from my mother. She had a very hard life. It's in a village with no electricity. And because it is fairly high up on the slope, to the west side of the Guangdong, west-ish. So she said, one thing I thought about is she had to break the ice in a bucket in order to wash in the morning, so they can go out before dawn, get this, to pick up droppings of whatever animals have, because they need to use that as a fertilizer. The soil is so poor. So that's what I remember it as. But go back a little. Then I went to China. I went to this village, and it's totally different. Again, you see, they changed, and it's nothing like that. I wake up in the morning, I look down, and there is the high hills with this creek coming through, and the mist slowly moving in. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous. And then I opened my mouth, and then they laugh at me because my vocabulary wasn't quite right. Because I think what I said is, you're working very hard in the morning, so it's just early, and then they all laugh. They say no. I asked them, why are you laughing? They say no. You should say, you are supposed, the right thing to say is I just one word. I just missed one word. But it was actually quite interesting, I find. But it didn't jive with what my mother said. China is nowhere.
Smita, will you have a question?
So I have a lighter question for you. So you said to Julie's question that your answer was that your home is wherever you are, and you've lived in all three places, and you have imbibed a lot of the cultures, I'm assuming. So what about your food habits? I mean, how have they been influenced by the places you have lived in? I mean, have you imbibed? I mean, is it a fusion of all three cultures? Or, the food that you eat at home, not what you eat at restaurants. I mean, what is it like?
Robert is here to say whether she's right or wrong.
You pick up everything. Your environment makes you, and the people that you surround you with or you associate with also influence what you are. I mean, not just in food, but in habits. You see, I have a friend who hikes, and she go and hikes in the winter, and I hate winter. And she insisted that we buy snowshoes to go out up in the snow, in the deep snow. She got, again, you see, I hate snow, but we do it. So it's with food, again, it's more fusion. And food, again, is more complicated because how busy are you? What's your interest? Are you interested in cooking? And unfortunately, I'm not that interested in cooking. I think it's mainly my mother's fault. It's her fault. Everything is her fault. But anyway, because she was such a good cook, and there's no way you can live up to an image like that. So I just in defense, I said, I don't like cooking. So it's a very good defense, because with my relatives in Canada, I said, I don't like cooking and I'm so bad at it. So they do the cooking. I know it's pretty bad. Hey, you didn't hear this, my nephew. So the food is that, yes, because we are so busy. When I was doing accounting, I was working full time plus studying for accounting. So we don't have time for cooking. Let's see that, anything that can be done in 10 minutes or 20 minutes, put it in the microwave. That's about it. So yeah, I hate to tell you, I can't tell you much about food.
Robert, would you throw in a bit of British humor there and tell us whether your wife actually makes a meal on a Sunday for you?
I think that my wife has had to moderate her culinary skills into a sort of Anglo-Saxon format, having married me, and all I can say is she seems to do wonders very beautifully, but the only point I would make is that having a sort of technical background, I sort of expect there to be a well-defined formulation for everything, whereas my wife seems to just take odds and ends and combine them in a rather random fashion and produce things that are very, very edible, and I will ask her then a few days later to replicate this, and we get something entirely different. But no, I can honestly say I have no complaints about her culinary skills.
You better.
You're a generous man. You're a generous man, Robert. Who was wanting to say something here? Anasui?
Kwai, you've talked extensively to Julie about the writing getting influenced by your multiple moves from China to India to Canada. So how do you remember the childhood stories? And I did read Uncle Worry, one of your short stories, and you were quite descriptive of the internal segmentation within the Chinese community, and you did refer to the Chinese community's engagement with the larger society, in terms of the nephew going around with the Indian girls and the uncle Bari not liking it much. So how do you incorporate all of that now that you've moved out of here and into another society where there's a different external society? So obviously young boys are moving around with the external society there too. So in that context, how has it come into your short stories, whether it's the Indian background or the Canadian background?
Yes, the racial. I think in the 1960s, 70s, it's different. For example, I was growing up, the Hakka stay together. The Hakkas, different group. The Cantonese, we don't associate with them Cantonese. Apologies, Daisy. She's at the back there, and she's a good friend of mine. So that was those days. That time, the reason is that it's brought over from China because the Hakka have been moving south from the north for eons, and then understandably, they come to a local area, it's already settled. China, if you look at the geography, it's got a narrow strip of land for arable land, and the rest of it is mountains. The foothills going all the way to Kunming and all the mountains. So it's all settled, the southern land. So there is always a conflict. Somehow that carried over to Calcutta. At that time, all the Hakka temple is got this statue of a horse, and I kind of wonder what is a horse doing in a temple, outside. What happened is that once upon a time, the Hakka and the Cantonese, they fought for land in Calcutta. It's not true, it's a myth. And they just about when the Hakka was about to lose the battle for whatever, a horse came out. It just chased the Cantonese and the Toisanese away, and we won. So that's why the horse is there. I don't think there's any grounds for that. But anyway, that was the background that I grew up in. And therefore, there's a no-no. Marrying a Cantonese is bad enough. Non-Chinese? You got to be kidding me. So, but again, you see, time changed. Now it's very, very common for, say, a Chinese boy or a Chinese girl to marry outside. Robert and I caused a huge scandal. Some of the Chinese community, Hakka community, wouldn't speak to me. It was a big thing at those days, but nowadays, no. It's very common. And in Canada, a lot of the Chinese, they don't speak any Chinese dialect, and which their parents get very upset about, and we have clubs, we try to get the kids to learn, but that's the way it is. It's change. It's just change, just keep going. Fortunately or unfortunately, it depends on your point of view.
There's this whole theory now called the preservation of culture in the diaspora. So when you have the preservation of culture, you are actually pretending that you are keeping that culture alive in the diaspora. But in the mainland, it's moved on. Look at us. We still have Tamil weddings where we bring Ganga Jal from India. Can you believe it? One of our oldest book circle friends.
Hi, Kwai. I've been listening to you, and unfortunately I haven't read anything that you've written, so pardon me if I'm going to be asking something which is might sound foolish. As I've been listening to what you've been saying, you're seeing a fairly feminine point of view, not surprisingly. And there's a lot of reference to your mother and what has come through to you from her. But virtually nothing as far as the male Chinese side of it and the influence. And I would be interested to know something from that point of view as well, on your life and as you grew up and what made you.
Yes, men. You got to have them. We can't live with them. Oops. Okay. The Hakkas in Calcutta at that time, very patriarchal. And even now in Toronto, we have the senior club. You have these club, elders. They're all men, which is, anyway. So therefore, we don't mix that much. In my family, we have 4 boys and 3 girls. Actually, there used to be 9 of us. 2 of them were in China. And somehow we girls seems to be always together, and the boys are out. I don't know what they do. Only recently I get to know my brother a little. Before that, they are just brothers, they're just boys. We don't know them. And then I start digging for stories. I said, what do you do? What do you do whole day? I mean, my sister and I, we stay home, we read books, we sew, and we're supposed to cook. And what do you do? And I have a story, done one thing that you just have to get them one apart, and so you can hear the story of what the other one did. And I hear about the story of how the 4 of them go chasing monkeys, and then one got a little slow in running away, got bitten. And I get to hear all the story what they have done. And one brother who is very strong, and then the other one is more nerdy, like more bookish. And he says, well, my other brother get beaten up all the time, and then this elder brother, who's a strong one, saw the bruises. Who did it? Who's done it to you? And he says, I really don't want him to go chasing after the guys and then beat them up, and then they come back and beat me up again. So we don't really know the men, and the men didn't think the woman has got much brain, I guess. It's just one of the patriarchal Asian society. And even now in Canada, it's sort of still persisted somewhat, but not as much. But then in Canada, we all scattered. So we really don't get to know people all that much. So I'm sorry, I can't get you much, but it's probably something like the Indian society, Indian family. Just change the facial feature and you got them.
Yes, of course. Also part of our book.
Thank you so much. It was so interesting listening to all that you spoke. I have 2 questions for you, not 1, but 2. The first is that we've all grown up knowing that there is a book in all of us. We all have a book inside us, which our sensitivities, our, like conditioning doesn't allow us to take it out. And if at all we do, it requires a lot of effort and courage to go ahead. This is number 1. How did you handle that? Number 2, the Chinese, from my experience in Calcutta in the last 30 years, has been that they are leave me alone temperament people, They mind their own trade and business, and they are seldom loud. They are very well behaved. They are hardly found to have any kind of an aggression. And the Desi patriarchy that you just mentioned, is also a part of the whole thing. My question to you is, the second one is that how did you break this glass ceiling? How did you manage it? Because there are many things which do come out, like you just spoke about your friend that you don't remember the name of, you didn't remember what she looked like, but it must have been cathartic for you to have it out from your system. So how do you handle these 2 things? Thank you. Okay. The first is that there is a book inside all of us. It takes a lot of effort and strength to take it out. And once it's out, is it a kind of a catharsis? Does it kind of heal a person? Number 2 is... Let's okay.
Actually, in Canada, there is this trend of thought that, you encourage people to write to get rid of the frustration. So for me, I think it's a lot of, firstly, it's a dare, you know. They said that something, interesting story is not relevant in a whatever it is. So stories are always relevant. So it's a dare. So you said, I can't do it, I'll do it. And also I had a very, very encouraging professor called Guy Allen. He read my fish story. He thought it was really funny and got potential. So he started encouraging me to write. And being an accountant, I think money did matter. So I applied for, he encouraged me to apply for a government grant. It's a very substantial one. The grants speculate that you got to quit work and then just sit down and write and make sure you publish. Well, no, not the last bit. So I did get the grant, and being an accountant, I said, okay, that is the encouragement. That's that proved that I can. People do appreciate writing, so I should write. And I really sat down and went at it, and then that's how I got the stories done and got it published.
I always felt sorry for the people who were being encouraged to write, and they were in the same class as Kwai, because the majority of the other students lived and had grown up locally, and all they were writing about was their time at school or their first playing in a hockey game or something of this nature. And these were all very well written, but then blasting in from the other side of the world would be this story of an exotic nature in a distant land coming from Kwai. And it really, really made me feel sorry for them. But anyway, it came through very well for Kwai in this respect.
So Kwai didn't have a level playing field. You were lucky in your Exotica. Anyone from this side? Anyone have a question? Go for it.
Good evening, everyone. It's absolute joy to hear to someone like Kwai Yun Li here. She's a delightful writer, and though I have not read the book, there are bits and pieces that I have gathered, of course, thanks to Google. And I just have a question. There's a quirky sense of humor. There's a weirdness, out of place kind of thing in her stories. But along with that, there is a character like Jade, where there is an uncomplaining stoicism. So how do you achieve that balance? Of course, I understand that there's a sense of fluidity because you've been traveling, migrating from one place to another. But how are you capable of bringing these two things together? This sense of humor, and then on the other side, there is the serious stoicism. And of course, I love that word manage there, that we have to manage. So if you would like to say something on that.
Lovely question. Basically, how do you manage the brickbats and the bouquets in life?
Actually, writing is a lot of work. If I have known at first how much work it is, I probably wouldn't be a writer. Accounting is so easy, you put the numbers together, and if you're doing the company doing well, they need me because they need me to report. They're doing badly, they need me to write a story about it's still doing well. So, but yeah, the writing, I think a lot of it is editing. The initial story, if you have seen it, it's probably double the size. And then you just have to be very ruthless. And then as you read along, something that will snag you to say, this ain't working, come on, do something about it. And then you do something. It's part craft and then part of who you are and what you want it in. And it's some of it, I reread my story. Someone said, what are you talking about? Are you nuts or what? So, I mean, I would have done it differently. So it is also what you are feeling at that time. I think a lot of it is, if you didn't have your chai in the morning, you may come out with something rather grumpy. So yeah, I really don't know. I think it's, I haven't figured it out yet. So sorry.
What you've said makes perfect sense. Nishi, would love to hear from you. You've written about Kwai's work.
It's been a pleasure listening to you speak. I read The Last Dragon Dance and Other Stories sometime in 2011. I suppose there is the book. I was just thinking as you were talking, it's been a pleasure listening to the way in which you fashioned your stories, your thought processes, and just a couple of things that came to mind. One was when Julie Dee was talking about how you're able to use humor. And I think maybe your position, your location in Canada, far away from Kolkata, possibly gave you this kind of, a location from where you could look back with a lot of nostalgia, for the place that has been part of your being, because you've grown up in Kolkata. So this has been home for you. And the other thing that I was thinking, some years ago, I did a walk. There are quite a number of walks that you can do right now in Kolkata. And I did one called Chinatown Walk, which begins at Tireti Bazaar, right in front of the metro station, and takes you through the lanes and by-lanes where you get to see all the temples, the eateries, you get to see a game of mahjong being played. And what I remember, apart from all of this, you learn the history, a lot of which you actually mention in your stories, where you have the mother character talking about what was happening in 1962, the Deolia camp and all of that. And one of the things that, I noticed on that walk was Chhatawala Gali. And Chhatawala Gali was something that I encountered for the first time in your stories. And I studied in a school very close to Tireti Bazaar, but I didn't know of Chhatawala Gali. So when I read your stories, and I think Kolkata figures very strongly in your stories, those places, you can almost, if you have lived there, you can almost kind of find your way through. And on this walk, when I saw Chhatawala Gali, I was immediately reminded of your stories. I went back to them again, because after doing the walk, I had a better idea of the kind of lived history of the Chinese in Kolkata. So it's been fascinating reading your stories. And I was just looking at that description there, Chinese Canadian writer. Right, and when I wrote a paper on this particular short stories collection, I referred to your identity as a Sino-Indian identity, because I think the Indian part of your identity is very, very strong. Somebody was talking about food, and in several of the stories, you actually use Indian words, like you don't use tea, you say chai, right? You say lassi, and then in Jade, the only story that is set in Canada, right? You also use the word jaldi, and you don't give any meaning for that word. You don't put in italics. So fascinating. Thank you so much. I don't have any question. I mean, I'm just listening to you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are any, okay, wonderful. So that's Subbalakshmi, they from the Telegraph.
I'm not sure if this is pertinent, but this is something that came to my mind. So you mentioned this entire concept of home being where you are, and you've been very liberal in terms of identity politics and just having labels of identity. And I think ma'am mentioned a little while ago the preservation of culture. And I think someone was also talking about, I think you mentioned that kids, parents of kids of diaspora essentially send the children away to like clubs where they can like pick up customs of native places or whatever it is. So I was wondering what your personal thoughts were on that, given how wide your lenses are in terms of identity politics. And I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I had a thought. Sorry. Just to clarify. Yeah. The question was, what are your thoughts on, people trying to kind of find a label for themselves, even if they are growing up in diaspora? That is basically what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Sorry, please.
Oh, sorry.
So even if they are growing up in the diaspora, how do these kids find their identity? Very complex, but very interesting.
I think depends on their age. My friend Fong got 3 boys, and their identity is more going with, they are in Canada, of course, Toronto, is mainstream. And what mainstream do. So as far as they are concerned, they are Canadians. They basically don't speak much Chinese, any dialect. And I think I did run into, when they are a little older, they tended to look for their identity, because when they are younger, they want to find a boyfriend, girlfriend, get a condo, get a house, get married, get a car, all these, what the religious person will say, all the cloudiness, murkiness that bunk up your life. So they were doing that. But once they go past that, then they start looking for identity. Then they'll start learning the language. I have a lot of children of my friends in Canada. Honestly, if you're talking to them, you wouldn't know that they could be Japanese, they could be Chinese, but even you couldn't tell the difference. Even I wouldn't be able to. So I guess this is part of progression of life. The changing, how life just changed. Because my friends sort of say they don't worry about it. But for the older generation, my generation, older generation, my brother and the sister-in-law, their oldest son married an Indian, maybe Anglo-Indian, but it doesn't married a very nice girl. But they couldn't reconcile to it. So I find it kind of a little hard, your grandchildren, the only remark they can make is, oh, they are very fair. So, well, how do they get a suntan if they're that fair? But anyway, so it is kind of interesting. It's almost a generational thing. And it may be there is something, another generation, they don't go for it. But most of the time now, identity doesn't matter, because I have a nephew in Nainital, Kathgodam. He is very Indian. You wouldn't know. You talk to him, you wouldn't know. So his identity is Indian. But now and then he lapses into, I am Chinese persona. And then I'll talk to him, and then he says, why, you think I'm not Chinese? You don't speak to me in Hakka? Well, I'm paying you a compliment. I'm speaking to you in English. But anyway, so it is a very, very racist thing to say, I know, but I say, what? But it is, sometimes he's in his 30s, so he is suffering from identity crisis right now. So it does happen. I hope he finds it, but it really doesn't matter. You are Indian or Chinese, does it matter? I don't know. Yeah. So to me, it's no, it doesn't matter. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Lovely, Kwai. Harish, you have a last question?
Yes, I have a follow-up to that one, and that is about China. So, the young second, third generation Chinese in North America, how interested are they in China? The language, Chinese history, the country, to visit as tourists, to specialize in China studies. I know my university in Canada, McMaster, has had a very strong China program. I did my doctoral studies in, one of my fields was Chinese history, 20th century. I found it a most interesting topic. If you have a good teacher, if you have a good supervisor, it's a very, very engaging country to study. So, how interested are the new second, third generation kids in various aspects of China?
Well, the first thing they say is, "Oh, China is so advanced." Okay, and unfortunately, they are mainly interested in the place as a tourist, and even if you go to China, I have two sisters who returned to China, was born in India, by the way, returned to China, and their kids. There's just one example. You know, we were going to see my sister as we were on a bus, and of course, me in my usual way, I look around and say, "Oh my God, this is so much mountains." And I saw this very interesting village called Jiulong. So I asked my nephew, "Is that yeah. Yeah, the Jiulong." So I said, why that what is this deal about 9 dragons? Because normally in Chinese myths, the dragons signifies water. So I said, they must have a big flood. He looked at me and said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." So even in China, they are not interested in the history. And then when I saw some writing, somewhere, and I asked who's written it, and they are not interested. All is that the extent of poetry they have. It's just the more popular cliche that by Li Pe, for example, all they want is the one about 床前明月光，疑是地上香，举头望明月，是地头思故乡。That's the extent of the poetry, and I look for, because I was very interested in one poem that it's a story. Poem's a story. It's a beautiful story. This young man walking on the street, he looks up and sees cherry blossoms, and under the door there's this beautiful young girl. Her face reflects the pinkness of the cherry blossom. She returned to the same place the next year and never found her. So I know that there was a sequel to what happened. But I could never find it. I don't know what happened to the romance. But anyway, so what I'm saying is, it's not much interest even in the China itself. It's mainly, let's go and see Huangshan, let's go and see, tiger leap. It's mainly, to experience something, I don't know, scared, walk out onto the grass thing and scared yourself to death. that sort of stuff, many sensations. So it's the same with the Canadians' youth, and unfortunately, I mean, I'm generalizing here now. I'm sure there were some nice people, so my apologies in advance to those people.
Thank you, Kwai. I think it would be nice to end with words from Kwai's nephew. No nasties.
No question or anything. Actually, after today's experience, I do feel inspired to also start writing. Especially about the contribution by the Chinese, made by the Chinese in Kolkata, which is not known to anyone. See, my father actually, he got a lot of Bengali friends. He spoke fluent Bengali. If he's in the other room, you can't see him. If you're talking, you think that the Bengali is talking over there. So he's got one friend, lawyer friend. He's a lawyer. His name is Bhawanipur. So all the Chinese, whoever have any problem with the landlord or any problem with the law, they used to come to my father. And my father used to take him to Mr. Day, and all the problem used to be solved. So most of the Chinese always come, and he doesn't take any money, free. But there's one condition. He does a lot of social service, and whenever there is any requirement for the funds, then he take my father. My father will go to all the Chinese in Tangra, in Territy, and everywhere. And because he helped all the Chinese, so all the Chinese, they donate money open-heartedly. Quite a lot of money they donate. So there are so many things they have done. I don't remember. I just remember two things. One is in Bovazar, the Kali Mandir over there. I think everyone must be knowing Kali Mandir. Before that time, it was in a very bad condition. So Mr. Bhuvan Kumar Dev, who was a councillor over there in that Sialda area, so he had decided to renovate that Kali Mandir. So then he told my father, come, we need some fun. So my father went and picked up all the money and all that from the people, and they have renovated this thing, the Kali Mandir. And then the other occasion I remember is the Thakur Pukur Cancer Hospital. Okay, that time, so Mr. Day came to my father. He said, we need a lot of funds for this cancer hospital in Thakur Pukur. So my father took him to everywhere, all the Chinese, and they donated quite a lot of money. They said quite a lot of money. I don't know how much it is. So when the opening of the cancer hospital, that time they came to my father. He said, told my father, please come as a chief guest. And there's a bed also in cancer hospital in Thakur Pukur that is named after you because of your contribution. So these are some of the things that, that's it. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to talk.
Thank you, sir. What can I say? Thank you for your patience. It's been a marvelous evening with all of you who've stayed on.
We didn't hear the Bollywood song though.
Thank you for your time. Do you want to sing a line? No pressure.
Jane has a lot of Bollywood.
There was this Diwali in Scarborough, Toronto. I had a wonderful time. I was downtown with some friends. Excuse me. I forget that I'm supposed to switch off my phone. Maybe this is a sign. I shouldn't. It's a sign that I shouldn't sing.
It's a sign you should sing.
It's complimenting your singing, the music. Back not be calm.
The person who called you also wanted to hear this.
Well, yeah. So anyway, so I was going home. It's Danforth and Lawrence. It's park on one side and hospital up the hill. I was walking around happily. I said, "Oh yeah, today is Diwali," but then. And then suddenly the song came to me. It's something like, apologies for mangling it, folks.
आसमान है प्यारे दी दुनिया ना मिला देख के दुनिया के दीवाले मेरे दिल चुपचाप And then I just cry all the way home. I don't know why. It was weirdest. Anyway, that happened.
You probably missed Kolkata. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again. We'll let you know the next date for the next book discussion. I'm happy to say that Rita Bhimani has agreed to be in conversation with us. And she's written this book, which is being launched on the 27th, called Meandering Mouthfuls. It is about food and journeys. Do come. See you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Again, very good evening to all of you, and thanks to Julie Di and Harish sir for having this event here. It's always good to be amongst intellectuals, and so we at the Bhawanipur house, this has been very passionately done. The group business is different. This is our first venture, so I hope you all enjoy the property, and we look forward to hosting such evenings all the more and more, very frequently, whenever Julie Di, Harish sir plans something next. More than welcome. Thank you once and all. Thank you.
I'll be in touch.